Hey guys, Jack here, and today I'm going to go through my preview of Matchday 3 and the different fixtures that are coming up. For the first game is Tottenham versus Wolves. I personally just see Tottenham going off their late comeback against Chelsea, and obviously their win against Southampton in the first game. I think they're going to win this comfortably. Wolves look shaky to begin with, they don't look like they're firing properly, so I'm going to guess a 3-0 win for Tottenham. And they've recently signed, I think, Dogi from Udinese, the under 21 Italian international. He looks very promising as an attacking fullback, and I think he'll do well for them. Obviously, next season he's back on loan. So next we have Everton versus Nottingham Forest. I think this would be a very, very tightly contested game. Everton did reasonably well against Chelsea, struggled a bit against Villa, but Onana looked promising, and they'll be at home at Goodison Park, so they will have the home crowd with them behind them. In terms of Nottingham Forest, they obviously got their first win in the City Ground last week. It was 1-0 win, and while they could have scored more, I think they were fortunate not to have conceded themselves. I think West Ham hit the bar 4 times, and obviously Dean Henderson saved a penalty. I think without their forwards, Everton are still going to struggle. I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess a draw. I think it might be 0-0 really. Leicester versus Southampton. Leicester as well. They look shaky. Granted, they got 2 goals against Arsenal, but otherwise they haven't looked too promising. They did in the first half of the first game, but it's difficult. And Southampton, they've been hit or miss really. I do think Bazunu has been good so far. Lavia has been good. Romeo has been dropped, which I'm surprised about because he's a very useful player in that defensive midfield role. I think Southampton need a bit more experience if they want to make sure to avoid relegation. I could see this also being a draw. I'm gonna guess a 2-2 draw. It'll be high scoring, but I think the defenses are going to falter. Fulham versus Brentford, London derby. I think that could be an interesting game. Obviously, Fulham have started quite well, and Brentford, we gone off the back of their win against Manchester United last week. I think while Fulham have done well, I still think that Brentford have more than enough to beat them. I'm going to guess a 1-0 win. I think it will be tightly contested for a while, but I think Brentford just will win overall, just being controlling the game. Palace versus Villa. Gerrard versus Vieira. I think that'll be a good game. Crystal Palace pulled off a tactical masterclass against Liverpool, as I said in the previous video. I do think that Palace have the attacking power of the likes of Ayew and Zaha on the wings, Eze and Elise, and Eduardo Mateta. I think they're very dynamic, and I think Crystal Palace can attack anyone really. Aston Villa, while they did well they got the win against Everton, they still haven't looked totally convincing. With Diego Carlos out for the rest of the season, I think Gerrard is going to be looking for another centre back. But honestly, I personally would think Palace wins this 2-1. Now Bournemouth versus Arsenal. I do think Arsenal should win this. Bournemouth have had a good win against Villa in the first game, but then obviously lost 4-0 to Man City. I think Arsenal are going to have a similar case with what they had against Leicester, where they're going to score a lot of goals, but they might concede 1 or 2. I'm going to guess a 3-1 win to Arsenal. Ramsdale hasn't looked his best, but Gabriel Jesus has been brilliant. And I think Saka, Smith Rowe, Odegaard, Martinelli, they're just going to continue to perform. I know Odegaard and Saka haven't been particularly great to start the season. Well, they've been good, but they haven't been the best that they've been. But I think as they play more and get used to each other, especially with Jesus just new to the side, I say they'll begin to adapt more. West Ham versus Brighton. Again, I could see this being a draw. West Ham have had a shaky start, but they looked promising against Nottingham Forest just unfortunate not to get the result that their performance deserved, and Brighton were unlucky against Newcastle not to get a win. Again, I think they had two chances cleared off the line. I do think this could be a good. I think that could be a good game as well. Like it's not going to be the most exciting game on Sunday, but in terms of performance, I'm going to guess a 1-1 draw, but it's going to be hotly contested. I definitely could see one of them, winning. And I think next game here, Leeds versus Chelsea, big rivalry at Ellen Road. Leeds have looked good. Obviously last week, after 60 minutes, Leeds seemed to falter and Southampton managed to get back into it. And I think that that Jesse Marsh has probably learned from that, and that he needs to make changes when the situation requires it to. Christensen at right back hasn't looked particularly promising. Well, he looks promising, but he doesn't look convincing yet. Aronson, Adams look very good. Bamford obviously came out of the last game injured, but I do think that they have enough to trouble Chelsea. But with Chelsea, after their last game against Spurs, will they have the motivation to push on? I think they will. I don't think they'll score as many, but with the likes of Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, Cucurella, Chilwell, James, Mount, they have all the quality to win this convincingly 2-0. Next game, it's Newcastle versus Man City. I think this could be. I could see Man City just tearing them apart as they did before, because Man City with their attacking lineup of De Bruyne, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, Haaland, they're just dominant. And while Newcastle have been brilliant since they've been taken over under Eddie Howe, and they've made a few good signings, and I think they haven't conceded yet. I do think that this will be the game that they do. I'm going to guess a 2-0 win to City, because I think Eddie Howe would be under damage control, and I could see Dan Burn and Erling Haaland just battling it out. I don't think Haaland will have too much issues with him just burning for pace, I'd say. But it's going to be an interesting tie, personally. And lastly, I think the highlight of the match week would be Man United versus Liverpool. Man United looking horrible so far under Ten Hag, and I don't think that's Ten Hag's problem. It's the toxic atmosphere that seems to be around it. Obviously, the ownership group isn't good. The Glazers haven't invested any of their money into it. The way that they've structured the club financially is what a lot of American owners do, and it works for them. But the problem is they're not active owners. They're not trying to make Man United the best club in the world. They're just happy that it's grown that has grown in value, but it hasn't done anything. That it's just there, really. So, and I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, we should play. United should play the youngsters." I don't think that's a good idea. I know Liverpool have struggled in the last few weeks against Fulham and Palace, only getting draws, and obviously Darwin Núñez has been suspended, and Liverpool have a few injuries. But I don't think, if we know what Liverpool are capable of, especially with Luis Diaz, Jota, Salah, and Firmino, and Harvey Elliott, who had a great game, I thought, against Palace. They have a lot of quality, so I think that the United maybe just need to try set up properly, and Ten Hag needs to just damage control. Could they get something out of this? Of course they can, and that's the fun. That's the joy about the Premier League, is that we don't know this. But I think if people are crying for United to play the kids, I think wait until next match week when looks like they're playing Southampton to make that decision, because if Liverpool turn on their A game, and they potentially could under Klopp, I don't think having the youngsters there to basically deal with the Liverpool onslaught, that's not going to do well for their development. But I'd see Liverpool winning 3-0, and that really could bite me in the backside, either Liverpool score more, or it's a more tightly contested game, or United have a magical turnaround. Other, Otherwise, I don't know, but my gut's going with Liverpool winning this very convincingly. So that's it for this week. Hopefully, I'll be back with you with the match review, and as always, take care.